Welcome to episode 178 of Fresh Air at 5. In this episode, I bring you some learning that I've done. No walking, as I was under the weather this past week. But without further ado, here's episode 178, Fresh Air at 5.
Hi, I'm Lisette Jacobson, host of the Black, Brown, and Bilingue podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwee First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. Hey, PLN, it's July 23, 2024, and it's the day before a special thing is going to happen. I'll tell you about that in just one moment. But today, taking it easy. Didn't walk yesterday, not walking today. I've been feeling under the weather a little bit. But yes, got some chores to do. One of those is to package the salmon, coho salmon caught in the Pacific Ocean last week. And I had smoked it up. And now I'm just vacuum sealing it and getting it ready for the freezer so that it can go. All right, this afternoon as I'm here in the garage, I was going through my podcatcher list on Apple Podcasts, and who came up? Jake Miller from the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. And Jake, hey, thanks so much for the episode. It was 3.5 minutes long. I'm encouraging you, friends, to mark your calendars for July 24th because Jake is going to be having a big surprise for us. Listen to this short episode. If you're listening to the Daily on Twitter, you'll be hearing that. And Jake, this is my announcement to all my friends on Twitter to listen in. And if you listen in on the 24th or something like that, or yes, tell other people about it, tag Jake in it, and you could enter to win a copy of his Educational Duct Tape book. I've already got one, I believe. And Jake, I'll take another one and give it to a friend. All right, so listen up. And thanks, Jake. Good to hear your voice. And we will catch up with you tomorrow, the 24th, on whatever is going on. All right, bye. I'm got some other podcasts to listen to as I work on the smoked salmon and packaging it up. Okay, bye. One more thing for July 23, 2024. All right, I'm out mowing the lawn now. And it's a beautiful day here. I just listened to episode 277 of the Easy Ed Tech podcast with Monica Burns, and she has on guest Nikki Jones, who is an educational tech coach in her district and has brought to us an episode discussing using an AI connection to using animation in your classroom. And Nikki talks about using Animate from Audio using Adobe Express and how she's had students as young as first grade be able to talk about their thinking in mathematics using an animated character on just talking out the problem, figuring out what they're going to do, and then having the character describe what's happening with their own voice. Do the magic, voila, voila. AI does the thing, and you get this cute little character that is able to discuss and talk about the math that they did. So, yes, that's fantastic. Teachers, I use it myself. Adobe Express, Animate from Audio to make class announcements. Use it to do, we did a project in my middle school where we made a presentation, and then I had the students take those slides, download those slides, put it into Adobe Express Video, and use Animate from Audio to bring those individual slide audios in as videos, do an overlay, and voila, again, we have another example of using AI to do some animation. Fantastic. I really like what you had to say, Nikki. Appreciate it so much. And thank you, Monica, for having Nikki on. And people, take a listen to this because Adobe Express is awesome. Can do some amazing things, and it's doing amazinger things all the time. All right, got to push some more now. Talk to you. Bye. The last thing for July 23, 2024, I'm just finishing up the yard. I listened to Tech Tools for Teachers with Shanna Martin, and she brings us an episode talking about summer vibes and emotional smarts. 2 SEL tools you can use in your classroom. And the first one is called Hue, and you'll have to look in the show notes of her podcast to get the exact spelling of that. I think it's Youhue, I think, but you'll have to take a look to make sure you get that correct. It has to do with being able to have a place where students can share how they're feeling. It's kind of like an emotional journal. They can do some writing. They can do some, use icons to share how they're doing. And then you can track how they're doing over the course of the school year to get a sense of their SEL well-being and how they're doing. What can you do else can you do this? It helps you as a teacher get a quick glance how your class is doing, who's not doing great according to this in the mornings, etc. Microsoft Teams has a similar tool called Reflect. I believe it's called Reflect, and it gives you a little character, and you can type a little blurb in about a prompt question that the teacher can give, and then get a sense of that. I'm not sure if the tracking is over the whole year. It might be. But this is tracked over the whole year, and the teacher sets some account. Students come in, and it could be part of the regular daily routine. Another thing she talks about is a podcast, and the podcast, can't remember the name of the podcast, but it's a podcast for youngers about emotions and how identifying feelings. You'll have to go listen to her episode to get the name of that podcast. I can't remember right now, but yes, I like that idea, Shanna, because podcasting is another way that people can learn. Students can even learn about these things, and not necessarily just reading and writing and things like that, but we can listen as well, as you and I have familiarity with. All right, that's all I got, people. Have a fabulous rest of your Tuesday. Carpenter out. Bye. Hey, PLN, it's July 25, 2024, out sitting in my yard, still recovering from my cold that I've got, so not walking right now, but just taking it easy and doing some learning. Today I learned and listened from Jake Miller, as Jake Miller Educational Duct Tape Podcast is back. Big thumbs up, Jake. Glad to hear your voice on the airwaves again. All right, sorry for coughing. Jake, you're back, and your episode was entitled Be Like the Buffalo. There's a great analogy by Rory Vader that Jake brings to us about how cows and buffalo treat storms differently. Buffalo head directly into the storm, whereas cows run away from the storm. And so thank you, Rory Vader, for that analogy. It's really helpful in our time of educational technology change and in our changing world of technology, that we do not run or hide from the emerging technology, but have a growth mindset as we approach what's going on. Specifically right now, we're talking about artificial intelligence. It is coming to us like a hurricane, and if we run away from it, we're going to be engulfed in it eventually and have to deal with it, but it'll be probably take us by surprise a lot more than if we take time to learn, do some learning, and prepare for its coming, and it's being here already amongst us. All right, Jake, I'm telling all the people, because on Fresh Air at 5, I amplify podcasters' voices and get this message out to the masses. At least, 36 of them. So all 36 of you go and take a listen to Jake Miller, subscribe to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. And as far as Australia and in, Australia, thank you, Cam Ross, for listening to Fresh Air at 5. Cam's going to take a listen to this because it's good stuff. Jake Miller, episode 107 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Thanks so much. And if you tell others about the comeback of Jake Miller, make sure you use hashtag #EduDuctTape in your posts on Twitter or wherever. And Jake will enter you in a draw for one of his books. Thanks. Bye. One more thing for July 25, 2024. Seeing to Lead, episode 87 out of season 3. Chris Jones brings us an episode called Half a Loaf. You're like, what about half a loaf? He's talking about putting in our maximum effort that we have with whatever we have that we can bring. And it's not about somebody else's 100%, but it's about putting in our maximum effort and showing up and doing the best that we can with what we've got in the tank. You know, right now I'm not feeling great, and I could just lay around and watch Netflix all day, but I'm showing up here and I'm sitting in my chair even though I've got a cold, and listen to podcasts and doing some learning. And I'm going to share in the very next segment something else that I'm doing right now this summer, some learning that I'm doing, and I'll share that with you in the very next segment. All right, Chris, thank you so much. Appreciate the challenge, and showing up is part of it. When we get sick and we feel gross, we don't really feel like showing up, but I think putting in a bit of effort that we can, the best that we can improve us and make us better than we are. Achieving more of our goals, and consistency is more important than intensity. All right, process over product. So very important. And that product is getting to our goals, but how do we get there? That's the part that really, really matters. Chris Jones, peace out. Talk to you in a second. Bye. The last thing for July 25, 2024, talking about showing up, as I was talking about what Chris Jones said in that last segment. I have purchased a couple of books in the spring, and they've been sitting on my desk until now. And one of those books is called Soulful by David Espindola. You in the Future of Artificial Intelligence. Talking about where we are as humanity today, where I am as a human being today in this rapidly progressing technological age where we have a pivotal piece of technology right before us that is getting into everything that we do, being artificial intelligence. I've read the first 3 chapters of this book so far, and chapter 4 is called, it's coming up. What is it called? Hang on. It's called Uniquely Human. Looking at what makes us uniquely human and how we as humanity need to still be involved in technology and not handing the reins over to the computers, no matter how smart they get. Skynet could be a reality, and if we give it up, Skynet will happen probably for sure. All right, that's my last thing. I've got some reading to do, so I'm going to sit here in my yard and read chapter 4 right now, and we will be back tomorrow for more Fresh Air at 5. Probably coming to you from the chair. Maybe if I'm feeling better, I will go for a walk. Thanks so much. Thank you, David Espindola, for your book. It's challenging my thinking, and I appreciate that so much. Talk to you guys later. Bye. APLN Saturday, July 27, 2024, bringing you the last segment of episode 178 of Fresh Air at 5. This past week I've been feeling under the weather, had a cough and a cold, so I haven't done any walking, but I've done some listening and learning, as you can tell from this past week. All right, I wrapped up the book Soulful, You in the Future of Artificial Intelligence by David Espindola. And I was reading chapter 4 and the rest late on Thursday. Finished it up late Thursday night and didn't record anything yesterday. The last part of the book, he talks about the future, where we are headed with an exponential growth of the technology around us, and how AI will be able to get us to an abundance state where we have abundance as opposed to scarcity state that we're in now. I recommend this book if you are interested in learning about a history of artificial intelligence, what it means to be human, and a potential future outlook of where we could go with artificial intelligence. Talks about a lot of things in here. There's a lot of references that could take you in other directions. And so that's what I'm got for you at the end of episode 178 of Fresh Air at 5. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it so much. And next week, I'm going to read a book by Ken Shelton and a co-author about artificial intelligence bias that just came out recently from Ken Shelton. All right, peace out. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoyed this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself because you are worth it.